2023 saw an absolutely massive boom in the installation of EV chargers throughout the whole of the UK. 2024 is set to smash those achievements by a considerable margin. I'm Dave, welcome to Dave Takes It On, and we're looking at EV charging in the UK in 2024 and what awaits us. Now, all of the records in 2023 showed a dramatic increase in the number of EV chargers being installed. In January 2023, there were 37,000 public chargers. By the end of December, that had reached 60,000. In 2022, the government launched the Levy scheme, which is the local electric vehicle infrastructure, and it's been allocated 6 billion and specifically aimed at local councils and street-side charging. However, by the end of 2023, not a single council had installed a single EV charger under this scheme. So in September last year, the government relaunched the scheme and there was an immediate uptake in the amount of money allocated. Now, it's not instant because once the money is allocated, the councils then need to go out to tender. So those tenders are probably in by now. And so during 2024, that money will be spent on EV chargers on the streets and roads of the UK. But not all councils work at the same pace. By the end of 2023, 45% of local councils still had no firm plans, despite there being plenty of money. For 2024, that money will now be spent, so expect a massive increase in the number of street-side EV chargers being installed in councils throughout the UK. While street-side charging is vital, the Energy Savings Trust, that's a government body, states that 80% of EV owners can and do charge at home. ZapMap, which is one of the government's main sources for data, did their own survey and they concluded that 84% of EV owners can and do charge at home. So very similar figures. The vast majority of EV owners today can and do charge at home. Now, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, SMMT, have publicly stated that we're going to need 2.3 million EV chargers in the UK to keep up with the demand. But is this a realistic figure? So today, at the start of 2024, we've got nearly 700,000 places for charging an EV. Now, this is total, so it includes ultra-rapid chargers, fast chargers, slow chargers, destination chargers, street-side chargers, workplace chargers, and home chargers. And don't forget, many of those home chargers might be as simple as just an exterior waterproof socket on the outside of the house, but they're still charging cars. And some of those houses, as I've recently mentioned, do actually offer to use that on a shared basis with others who cannot charge at home. So for the future, what could the government do? Well, I think immediately what the government ought to do is put in place a restriction on new houses that states that they should all have an external EV charging point on every new build, even if that is just as simple as a waterproof, weatherproof external 13-amp socket. They should also instruct all flats and apartments which have parking for the residents to install EV chargers in those locations. Again, this could be as simple as just external plugs, weatherproof. Now, these measures could be implemented almost immediately, and they would stop the situation deteriorating as new EVs hit the road. So in 2023, the number of EVs on the road reached 1 million. And for 2024, the expected number of EVs being added is 500,000. So all you EV doubters out there, we're looking for half as many being added to the UK roads this year as ever since EVs began. Now, of course, as per the ZapMap and the Energy Savings Trust, most of those will be able to charge at home for some or all of the charging sessions. But I agree, more EV chargers, public chargers, are needed. Now, the SMMT says we need 2.3 million. Is that a good figure? Well, the only thing we can do for comparison is have a look at the ICE cars and petrol stations, because ICE cars do need to top up. It's just with fuel, liquid fuel, petrol or diesel, rather than electric fuel. But they do need to go to a petrol station and top up. So on the UK roads last year, we had a total of 35 million ICE cars. And all of these have to refill in a petrol station. So in 2023, the number of petrol stations in the UK had fallen from an all-time high in the 70s of about 40,000 down to less than 9,000 petrol stations today. Each petrol station has an average of 7 pumps. So at the moment, this is fact, 35 million cars have access to 63,000 petrol or diesel pumps, individual pumps. So if all the cars in the UK went to the petrol station at once, approximately 4,000 cars would arrive at each petrol station and approximately 600 would queue up for each pump. But of course, each car only takes 5 minutes, we're told, to fill the tank. So out of that queue, if 7 cars each went forward and filled up at a pump simultaneously and took 5 minutes, the station could process 12 lots of cars of 7, average number of pumps, which is 84 cars an hour. So to clear their queue of 4,000 cars would take 2 days. Now this is a totally silly argument used by the anti-EV brigade, but it is a really stupid argument because it is absolutely not possible for every single car in the UK to go to a petrol station at exactly the same time. It's never going to happen. So at any time there are essential drivers on the road, they're never going to come off. I talk about police, ambulance, first responders, fire, first responders, delivery drivers, dropping off your Amazon parcels, the ones who don't use the van, taxis, Ubers and the like. There are loads and loads and loads of cars on the road at any one time. Also, a lot of people are working, so if their car is parked anywhere near their work, they probably can't get to a petrol station. So the idea of 35 million cars going to a petrol station is just absolutely stupid. So let's get that one out of the way. However, we have got now 9,000 petrol stations, 63,000 individual pumps, and that's a nice stable system. We have 35 million cars, and you don't see huge several mile long queues. Now, occasionally you do. We had the tanker driver strike a while back, but that's the exception. In a normal day-to-day working environment, we don't have massive queues in the petrol stations. You will see queues at peak time, but they're usually, 3 or 4 cars per pump, and it's only 5 minutes for the guy in front to finish off. So we don't have long waits at pumps. Even at those pumps where they do occasionally have queues, they may seem bad at the time, but if you go back there 11 o'clock at night or 3 o'clock in the morning or on a Sunday lunchtime, they're absolutely deserted. So 24-hour stations are available right throughout the night, and most of the time those 24-hour stations are totally empty. So we do not seem to have a major problem with 9,000 petrol stations, with 63,000 petrol pumps, servicing 35 million petrol and diesel cars. So what's going on with EVs? So looking at EV chargers and EVs, the typical time an EV will spend charging at a rapid or ultra-rapid charger, these are from the official surveys, and this is looking at 50 kilowatts and above, rapid and ultra-rapid. Typical time is 40 minutes at a non-Tesla charger, and Tesla have reported their typical time is 25 minutes. So if we take the total of 40 minutes as the average figure, which it isn't, then it takes 8 times as long to charge an EV at a rapid or ultra-rapid charger as it does to fill a car with petrol or diesel. So now the equation, how many do we need, gets really extremely difficult. Because whereas every single petrol diesel car in the country has to go to a petrol station, not every single EV in the country has to ever go to a public charger. 80% of current EV owners can and do charge at home. Many of them will never actually charge at a public charger, not ever. But some will. They'll have an occasional long journey and they will need to charge outside. So quite how many, we don't have that figure. How often, we also don't have that figure. But it's certainly not the million cars are going to be needing public chargers. But if they did, at present, if all EVs had to charge at a public charger and we use the rate of ICE cars filling up 1 pump per 575 cars and multiply that by 8 for taking 8 times as long, we would need about 1.5 million EV chargers in the UK. But taking a silly example, if all EVs had to charge at a public charger and we use the rate of ICE cars filling up of one pump per 575 cars and multiply that by 8 because EVs take 8 times as long, we would need about 500,000 EV chargers in the UK. Now, we already have 700,000, but these are mostly, I think about 600,000 of them are home chargers of some sort or destination chargers, and these are really slow 3.5 or 7 kilowatt chargers. So in terms of rapid chargers, we're at about, we hit 60,000 last year. So 60,000 to 500,000, we need 10 times as many. But that's assuming that every car at the moment would need a public charger, which they don't. 80% don't need a public charger for probably 90% of the year. So it's a very difficult equation to work out. Now, I've actually discovered all this on my travels. You see, most EV chargers are used for just a handful of hours a day. I think the average throughout the country is 3.5 hours. There are queues at peak times, but they are deserted for more than 12 hours a day and little used for the in-between. And this, coincidentally, is almost identical to my local supermarket, my local McDonald's, my local chemist shop, and in fact, pretty much everything else in our normal society. They generally cope rather well. At times, all of them are empty, waiting for customers. At times, there are probably queues out of the door, but overall, they cope perfectly well. McDonald's would never build another store next door just because for half an hour every day they get queues. That would be ridiculous. So the answer is we can cope at present. The EV structure already is perfectly adequate for the cars that we have and the number of people who need public chargers, particularly rapid and ultra rapid. We have enough chargers for the 1 million EVs on the road. But what happens when we get to 5 million? Okay, all the EV doom and gloom merchants start again, predicting grid crashing and massive queues of chargers if we get to 5 million. So let's bring it down to reality. In the UK, the number of new cars sold each year hovers around between 1.5 and 2 million cars. That's it. That's all we buy. Between 1.5 and 2 million cars. And not everyone will buy an EV. Many of those will still buy petrol or diesel. That's quite entitled to. So if we were to sell 1 million new EVs each year, it's going to take 4 years to reach that 5 million target. 4 years plus the one we're in, 1 million we've already got. They're predicting 500,000 this year, so this year we're not going to get anywhere close to adding 1 million. So all of this is some distance in the future. So what we need to do is realise that this is not today. We don't have a serious problem today. What we need to do is look at what's happening regarding the installation of new chargers to see what might happen in the future. Because as the sale of EVs increases, as the number on the road increases, the rapid and ultra rapid chargers are also increasing dramatically. Now, the government can help in really simple ways. So, for example, we build 250,000 new houses each year. These should all have chargers. It should be absolutely mandatory. It could be as simple as just a weatherproof plug on the outside, and you use your blue cable that comes with the car, and you just trickle charge it all the time it's parked there. And if you walk down an average street, you'll see half of the houses have cars there parked up 24 hours a day. A trickle charger for them would be absolutely brilliant. Well, also now local councils have got access to some of that 6 billion for the street side charging. And 6 billion buys an awful lot of chargers. It's not happened yet, they're just getting the funding, but that is in place for some of them and others are still applying. But once that money starts being spent, there's going to be a real boom in street side chargers, and it's about time. Alongside that, there's a new real boom in workplace parking and charging. An awful lot of companies have company car parks where people go and park for the day. Cars parked up there for 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, however long you work. It doesn't even cost the company anything to add chargers if they don't want to. Companies can approach EV companies like PodPoint, and PodPoint offer publicly that they will supply, install, do all the planning, service it, and collect all the money. The company does absolutely nothing, and it's free. So a company today could place an order with PodPoint and they would get as many free chargers as they want, or as many as PodPoint decide it's worth financially. So the company has to do nothing. Now, in effect, what happens normally is the company will do some sort of deal. Well, you fit them, install them, maintain them and everything else, and we'll do a split on the money. And that works fine for an awful lot of companies. So getting these chargers into workplace company car parks is really not difficult. Now, there are plenty of company car parks in the UK, but there are also plenty of private car parks. There are over 20,000 car parks in the UK, and most already have a few chargers. I was in Chester city centre recently, and a multi-storey car park there has got 24 7-kilowatt chargers. I was in Swansea, and their city centre car park has 12 7-kilowatt chargers. So if we just started fitting in every single private car park, 20,000 of them, just putting a few, we could add 100,000, 200,000 chargers amazingly quickly. Each person just putting in 2, 5 or 10 chargers. Amazing, isn't it? It's really simple as long as someone gets the idea and actually runs with it. Then there are hotels. And recently I made a video on the Chester East motorway services on the M56, and there's a hotel, it used to be a day's hotel, it's now changed to a Super 8. But they outside have 4 bays dedicated to charging for EV customers. These are 7-kilowatt chargers, they're supplied and run by GridServe, but when you book your room you can book one of these as well. And what happens is that's then dedicated to you for the duration of your stay there. So this hotel has 4. It means 4 people stay in the hotel with EVs can just plug their cars in, and the electricity is free. You pay a nominal charge when you book it, but the electricity is free. So it's yours. So if you're staying there for a couple of days, every day you come back, just plug your car in, and it's full the next morning. So what about retail parks? Oh, there's so many places these can go in. I was just thinking the other day about Manchester Airport. They've got about 20,000 parking spaces in 6 car parks, and you leave your car there while you're away on holiday. If they just put a 3-pin socket, 13 amp socket, in a particular section where EVs could go, and you're away for 5 days, 7 days, long weekend, whatever it is, you could just leave your car plugged in. Don't need a charger. It'll charge at 2.5, 3 kilowatts, whatever the rate is. Doesn't need to be any more expensive than the actual price the electricity is, just standard tariff. And it would mean that you come back and your car's full. There's so much that can be done. And there's tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of places and spaces where we can actually fit EV chargers. Okay, so we're going to be seeing a huge number of slow or fast chargers going in 2024 with the levy. But now if we take a look at the rapid and ultra rapid end of the market, we see an incredible growth there as well. There's round about 16,000 rapid and ultra rapid chargers as at the end of December 2023, but there's going to be a massive boom in 2024. There's been a huge influx of financing. Now, financing EV chargers and the price of EV chargers is something that I'm going to be tackling in a separate video, so I'm not going to do too much here, but there's a huge number of green investment funds starting up. And these include massive giants like Blackstone. They actually have a branch which is purely green. And yeah, we've all got, I know they still fund the oil companies as well, but there are some green investment banks and investment funds which will not have anything to do with oil, gas, and they will only deal with green or renewable energy and EVs. And these are pumping money into the EV public charging infrastructure. So we saw recently that GridServe just received £500 million. It's the biggest single amount anyone's ever received from a green fund. And GridServe, with that, last year they used some of it and they doubled the number of the total number of chargers by adding 400. This year they're going to do even more. The CEO of Osprey last year also installed 400 chargers, and their target for this year is 600. Now, in addition to that, we're seeing the rise of the EV charging hubs. And we started with GridServe at Braintree a few years ago. I think that was the first in the country, a dedicated charging hub. Since then, they're springing up everywhere. There were 20 in 2022. At the end of 2022, there were 99 hubs of various sizes in the whole of the UK. November 2023, exactly 1 year later, it's gone up from 99 to 239. And there's a huge long list of hubs being planned and installed this year and going on into next year. So we're going to see probably 1,000 hubs springing up before the end of 2025. These hubs will have 20, 30, 40, 50 rapid and ultra-rapid chargers, as well as some fast chargers. They'll be available at all times, 24 hours a day, and they usually, until now, the ones I've been to, have superb facilities at most of them. While many people do complain about lack of chargers, the reality is we're actually not doing that bad. We seem to have a problem in learning how to use them. Yet with petrol stations, these theoretically have over 400 cars queuing up for every single pump in the whole of the UK, yet we don't see huge queuing or traffic problems. Might I suggest that we've learned how to use petrol stations properly only when we need them? You don't go every day and top up. See, if everyone went every day and just topped up what they used for the day, you would end up with massive queues. The system couldn't cope. But we don't do that. With petrol, we'll put an amount in, and let me tell you now, we never fill the tanks apart from long journeys. The average person will go to a petrol station, they'll put in 20, 30, 40 pounds worth of petrol. Won't be full. That's enough to get them through the next week. Then the next week they'll go back again. So why, when you get an EV, do you feel you have the compulsion to plug it in every single night? It's absolutely weird. So we need to learn or be educated a lot more about how an EV actually works. Why are people trying to charge every single day? The average UK mileage is 20. It's 8,000 a year, which is 140 a week, 7 days a week. That's 20 miles a day. If your car's got range, let's say a really bad one, the worst car you can think of, it's got a range of 100 miles. Well, if you charged it up last night, you've got no need to charge that one again for 2, 3 or 4 days. If your car's got a range of 200 mile, you only ever need to do something once a week. Why on earth do people think they have to plug the car in every single night? It's madness. Now, if you can't charge at home, you need to go to a public charger. If you go to a public rapid charger, and these actually, some of them will come down in price, they're down into the 60 pence region, you'll spend maximum of 40 minutes. This is the average time people spend at a charger. However, if you are only replacing 100 miles, there are many cars that can replace that in 10 or 15 minutes. Many. In fact, most of them. So you're not even going to be there 40 minutes. You drive there, you might spend 10, 15 minutes, quick coffee, and then you're off again. Once a week. Is that a problem? Well, I think it's a problem of education. Anyway, that's it for now. Thanks very much for watching. If you want to see the next in the series, which deals with the financing and the charging prices, then please subscribe and we will notify you when that one's launched. That one will be launching, we're hoping, sometime next week. Well, thanks a lot. I'm Dave. Well, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. And if you'd like to see more, please subscribe and click the notification bell so we can notify you next time we launch a video. And a massive thank you to all our Patreon supporters. It is your support that enables us to go out and make these videos for you. So thank you very much for your contribution. I'm Dave.